me today is Trevor Lockhart from Cash Converters. Trevor is a business-oriented professional with abundant experience in management and entrepreneurship. Trevor is currently the Chief Operating Officer for Cash Converters South Africa and a proud director of the following companies: True North Holdings, True North Franchising, Cashiers Investments, Quick Draw Capital, Quick Draw Finance Africa, Quick Draw Holdings, and Quick Draw Software Solutions. In 2011, Trevor obtained his master's degree in business administration from the Management College of Southern Africa, and his skills have been applied successfully across various industries. Thank you for joining us, Trevor, and how are you?
Good morning, Romy. I'm very well, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you well.
Fantastic.
Good.
Well, welcome to post-COVID-19 and into our new reality.
Jeez, yes, it's been a new reality and quite a bit of an adaptation, a lot of adapting for people, which includes both from home and business and so on. And today we're going to be discussing the role of the franchisor during COVID-19, because obviously everyone's been in lockdown, people have been unable to trade while others have been able to trade. And there's been a lot of regulations and stuff coming out that people are confused about from all sides, businesses and things going forward. So yeah, how's that been for you and Cash Converters?
Well, it's a really good question. So I think as a start for me personally, you may notice I'm broadcasting out of my garage. So in my context, I work full-time, my wife works full-time, so she's claimed the study, which relegated me to the garage. And we have 2 5-year-olds who have the rest of the house. So they run around, and occasionally between myself and my wife, we have to try and do some homeschooling, which I can tell you that teachers are clearly not paid enough. They need to be paid a lot more money to try and get through what they do on a daily basis. And then in the business world, so the business world's been turned on its head. It's been really, really difficult to navigate through this process. And I think that's what we're going to talk about today. So there have been some really, really good challenges that people had to get through and try and understand what's going on, and the world has changed, and it's not going to be the same for a long time in the future.
No, it's not. And yes, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'm sure a lot of parents at this point has found a new respect for teachers because they have a lot to contend with on a daily basis, not just your kids, but everybody's children. So yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. Now, let's start with Cash Converters. What have you done to assist your franchisees in their businesses, and what would franchises, say Cash Converters, need to do to consider going forward?
So, Romany, I think the role of the franchisor in uncertain times like this is primarily to try to create some form of certainty. There are so many questions out there, and there's not enough time to answer all the questions. So what we need to do is to try to create certainty. So interpret the path that we have and the rules of the game that we've given, and then try to get a roadmap and say, right, guys, this is the direction we're going in. This is the basis we're going in this direction, and this is why we're going in this direction. It's a combination of keeping some of the previous model and making sure there's a whole lot of things that still work that we can keep and are still relevant today. And then there's a whole lot of things that we literally have to throw away and start again because life has changed. So it's a whole lot is to take your franchise and say, you understand what your role is. You talk to your role. Your role is to run your business to the best possibility that you can, looking after your customers. And our role is to navigate the future and understand what that looks at. We look at slightly different time frames. So the franchisee is looking at, how do I open my business tomorrow? How do I start from scratch? How do I get myself back to break even? And the franchisor needs to navigate a longer term strategy to say, we are at the moment, where do you want to be post COVID-19, and how are we going to get there, and what are we going to look like when we come out the other side? So that's really much the 2 different roles of what we need to do.
And in what areas would you say a franchisor can give assistance to, or how would they give guidance to franchisees during this lockdown? So we're looking like, for example, landlord agreements, finance bankers, all those kind of things. What has been that experience?
Yes, so probably a really good place to start is perhaps with the landlord. So you've got to look at every aspect of the business and investigate it under the new paradigm that we find ourselves in. and then based on that, try see what we can do. So if we look at landlord engagement, for example, we've got some really difficult position to be in. So we've got a whole lot of franchisees that are desperately wanting to really renegotiate with their landlords. They don't want to pay because they closed. On the other hand, we have landlords out there saying, well, we have businesses who are up and running, and you still occupy the premises, so surely you still need to pay rent. So you've got two people on the same team are sort of moving in opposite directions. I think the franchisor's role in that environment is to create, again, a platform for everyone to chat to. So in terms of what we did, we engaged with all the landlords. We sent them a letter to say, listen, this is the context of what I think you guys should be chatting on, understanding that we have a long-term relationship with you and that this is a new normal. So the previous rules don't apply. What we need to do is negotiate something that makes sense for both parties. We need to re-look at it every 30 days to understand where we are. I think it's unreasonable for any franchisee to believe that he should not pay any rent just because he's closed, because his business is still there. It still occupies the space. The landlord is unable to give the space to somebody else. In the same vein, I think it's unrealistic for the landlord to expect a normal rental payment in a new COVID-19, where you've got a business who is not operating, he's not earning an income, and if he continues paying, it's just going to be the end of that business. So there has to be a compromise on both parties. In our context, we send letters out to everybody to say, guys, this is the context that I think you should be negotiating in, understanding these long-term views. We also believe that we've applied our mind to it, and we think this is the basis we think you should start off. So there should be some form of sacrifice in terms of saying you should not pay the full amount of rent that you normally pay. Secondly, we think there should be some form of deferment in terms of, yes, I should still pay my rent, but I want to sustain my business right now, so perhaps I could pay it at a later stage. And this generally works with the bigger landlords. But please understand, for the smaller landlords, again, they also have cash flow issues. So it's an individual negotiation for each person, but you need to set the framework to allow the guys to understand, guys, these are the rules. We understand you're both fighting for your lives, but let's be serious about this and understand we've both got to come out the other side together. So landlords, I think that was the thing to do. Urge people to talk about relationships, build these relationships in difficult times, because when COVID-19 is over, and it will be over, you're still going to have the same landlord. You've still got to chat to that landlord. You've got to negotiate with that landlord. So understand that we're in this together. And if we take that approach, generally you come out the other side better.
That's good. That's good. That's a great answer. I really like that advice and things that you're giving us. We've had some, Dirk is just saying, Dirk Cilliers is saying hello from Monkey Nastics. Hi, Dirk. Thank you for joining us. And Dennis Kloka got a question for us, which I'll ask in a few minutes. But let's just quickly talk about finance and bankers and their engagements.
So yes, again, another integral part of this business, of this piece of the puzzle, is your financiers or your bankers. And again, they've given you money to set up your business. You have some gearing in your business, and now you've gone into difficult times because there's no choice of your own. You're no longer allowed to trade, and as a result, you don't have any income. So based on that, you've had a look at this and said, well, Mr. Banker, this is the position I'm in, and this is what I need to go. And based on that, what can you do about this? There've been a huge amount of opportunities, and I think all the banks have come to the party really well, really quickly, saying you can have deferments on your loans. So approach the banker to say, yes, I have some gearing in my business. Yes, I have a loan. And my challenge with this loan is that I'm not sure I can afford it right now. Can you defer my payments on this loan? And again, so as a franchisor at Cash Converters, we sent all the banks a letter explaining our context, explaining the impact that it would have on our franchisees in terms of how we saw it, and giving them a recommendation saying we should look at deferring the loans. The important part to remember this process is that, again, I'm talking about relationships. If you have a good relationship with your bank, you've been open and honest with them, you've made your payments when you're supposed to, you'll find that they will bend over backwards to help you. If you have a arm's length relationship with your banker and you haven't met your obligations and you've given them the runaround, when it comes to them now to help you, they're going to find it difficult to look at your account in that context and say, well, we're happy to help you in that context. So again, it's about relationships and understanding that it's sometime in the future, you're probably going to need the bankers again. And you're going to need to raise some more capital or recapitalize your business, whatever that is, you have to go back to these same people. So the relationship now is important. You can't go out fighting for your life at the cost of everybody else. It has to be a relationship. We're both in this together. What makes sense for both of us? What is the best way we can keep both of us alive in the long term? So understand all the options available. There's a huge amount of people that you could approach for bailout, for additional capital. These things take a while. Because every franchisee is exactly the same business, you could get someone in your organization, as we did, to give you a sort of a copy and paste pro forma. So sort of send this letter with your details at the top to whatever institution you're applying to for funding. We did the applications for all the UIF for all our stores. And I was actually pretty blown away how quickly we managed to do the applications and got money into our franchisees' bank accounts to help pay those staff. And again, it's just a copy and paste exercise. And the standard letter goes to the same people. All we have to do is change the details of the franchisee at the top, and it goes through. So I think that in terms of UIF, have done exceptionally well. There's a whole lot of other funds that you can have access to. So you need to educate the franchisee what's available, what you qualify for, and then help them apply for those funds. So again, long-term relationships, understanding the landscape, creating some certainty, and understanding that we're in this together.
That's great advice. You know, I really do believe that this is the time where people need to work together. Now, I also strongly believe that the businesses that will get through this and survive this pandemic are the ones that are building those relationships, being transparent with the bankers, being transparent with the people that they supply, the people that they need to work with, so that we can help each other and support each other and get, because ultimately we all want to survive and get through this without being what do they call them, a victim of the situation we find ourselves in. So yes, as Lindy Barber says, and I agree, wow, that's very proactive. So Cash Converters has actually been a very proactive franchisor, is what Lindy is saying. And yes, it does sound, I mean, I already feel a bit calmer and more informed about this COVID-19 and business regulations, which is the next thing that's coming up to my question, because interpreting the regulations and interpreting or having to deal with the things that government is saying that we must do and adjust, and not all of it is so clear cut and not all of it is obvious in how we interpret this. And so one of the questions that Dennis Clark is also asking is, how did you guys manage to start trading under level 4 lockdown, and how did you interpret these regulations?
That's a great question, and I think it's really, really difficult. So we're tremendously fortunate in that my partner is passionate about such things. But what it takes really is lots of hard work. So these regulations were published at around, I think it was about 10 o'clock at night on a Thursday night or the Wednesday night, with the concept of saying, all right, these are the new rules, now off you go. By probably 10 o'clock the next morning, because most of us worked through the whole night to understand those regulations. So my first thing and a piece of advice around the regulations is read them. So I think I'm coming on to about 30. Multiple times I've read alert level 4 lockdown regulations. You need to read them. So debating the interpretation of a clause in the regulations with someone who's never read them is a pointless exercise. So go and read them. When you read them, you're going to read them in your context, because you're trying to see what makes sense to you, and you need to read them in a broader context to understand, first of all, what they're trying to achieve. So we understand we're trying to get some balance between economic activity, and we're trying to stop the infection rate. So they've put that a whole lot of things together. So in terms of level 4 lockdown regulations, the difference between level 4 and level 5, in level 4 we had this concept of emergency services, or suddenly I can't remember the terminology, but it'll come back to me. What we've now put in place is something called permitted goods. So what they looked at that, and they created a whole lot of categories, which was section, I don't know, table right at the back of regulations. It creates a whole lot of sections that says, right, we are now to trade in following permitted goods are now relevant. So we went through the permitted good process and then understood that as we go through them, for example, the first one we came across was baby goods and toddler goods, so goods for looking after children. So this is now a permitted service, and we trade and buy and sell baby goods. We buy cots, we buy car seats, we buy those sort of things. So straight away the regulation said you're allowed to trade in these things, means you are now allowed to trade in those things. ICT equipment, so computers, telephone equipment, so anything that sets up a home office, anything that sets up education at home, the access you're allowed to trade in. It goes further, there's some personal items. So you've got to go through those line by line and actually and look at them and say, well, can we or can't we trade in base of these things? So we're going to start at the beginning. So The start of the act says if you are able to work from home, you should do so, which is the first thing. So if you can transact at home, you can transact at home. It doesn't say you can't. Secondly, it says, right, if you now want to transact in the workplace, you must be listed either in essential services or permitted goods. So we looked at permitted goods and tried to understand, do we fit into permitted goods? We found about 6 or 7 categories where we definitely fit into permitted goods. What we needed to then is to inform our stores to say, right, you can trade in the following items, you may not trade in the following items. So those are the things that you can't do. These sort of things you can do at the store, and these sort of things you can't do at the store. You can only do these things at home. So we've gone through the process, if we put it in the cash converters context, so we've made submissions to DTI in terms of trying to understand, can we trade, and have you remembered the second-hand dealers? Have you remembered the pawnbrokers? Have you remembered the microfinance sector? So we've made submissions to DTI on our own, alternatively associations we party to. So the MFSA, the Second-Hand Franchise Goods Association. So all those people who've made submissions to DTI, who subsequently said we had to put it through the COVID-19 Council. We made those submissions. Over and above that, we worked really closely with the police. We made straight contact with the head of FASH and said, guys, this is where we are. This is our interpretation. This is what we're doing about it. So again, it's about relationships. So we have close relationships with these people that we are able to have access to. We've interpreted law, and I didn't read it myself. We actually got senior counsel, we got lawyers to have a look at it and say, this is how we see it. How do you see it? Are you comfortable? We then had, so from the time they released the regulations to the time we opened our first store, we had 3 webinars with our franchisees, which we took them through every step from to open the business. What do you need to do? So you need to control the entrance to make sure there are thermometers. You need to record the people's details. You need to do a calculation of how many people are allowed in your store at any point in time. You have to have a workplace plan in terms of how you're going to look after your staff, how your staff are going to travel there. So the regulations set these things out. And what we did is interpret them and put them in plans for our franchisees and said, right, if you want to open, this is the process you need to follow to open. These are the things you are allowed to do. These are the things you're not allowed to do. And I think that's the role of the franchisor. We can't expect a franchisee to come along and now start reading regulations and interpret them and applying them to his own business. What we need to do is say, guys, we've interpreted, this is our position, whether it be right or wrong, this is our position. It's a reasonable man test. We've taken legal advice on it. This is where we are in the process. We've notified DTR, we've notified the police saying this is our interpretation, and this is where we're going. In most instances, those people have come back and we agree with you. Alternatively, we said, look, we have a grey area. It's not addressed in the regulations. We've asked for feedback from DTR. We haven't received the response yet. We have customers that we need to sort out. And then we make a decision and we make a ruling and we just apply that ruling. And as long as we're consistent through it, I think we're really, really comfortable. Going back to, we need to balance, are we increasing the amount of infection and are we stimulating economic activity? If we apply our minds to those 2 things, generally I think you're fine. But don't do anything that the Act says you're not allowed to do.
And tell me something, well, this is Nareen Singh is asking, when will cash converters be opening to pawn?
Yeah,
and I guess, yeah, sorry, I just said, and I guess that's also something else that was coming in from Shaban Davids, who wants to know is why are you transacting with clients in allowing them to collect and pay for their items?
Okay, so you got to interpret the regulations as we go first. So there was a whole lot of transactions that were entered into prior to lockdown. So where we sit ourselves at the moment, quite clear, you can't enter into a new credit transaction under level 4. Okay, the client can't come to you, he can't give you a pawned item, and you can't give him a new loan. The regulations, we don't believe that they fit into those regulations. Our interpretation says you can't do that. If you already have the item and the person wants to renegotiate a new loan telephonically, and you can do that transaction electronically, I see no legal reason why you can't do that. The third one, and the biggest challenge, is those people who had items who entered into agreements prior to lockdown, but whose agreements expired in lockdown. So the Act is quite clear that you can't enter into a new agreement. The challenge is, what do you do with those poor people that have given you their TV or their computer and now have to look after their kids or whatever it is, and saying, well, I entered into agreement. I want my item back. I have my cash to give it to you. Where are we in this process? Can I have my stuff back? We gave the guys a limited opportunity and said, first of all, we will not charge you interest while we're in lockdown. It's not your fault if you can't. So we froze all of our agreements. Whatever the original amount was you were supposed to pay, you paid that anyway. Then we gave them a small window that said, if you desperately want your goods, contact the store. We'll make arrangements for you to come and collect them. And we sorted those customers out, those ones who were interested at that point in time. So I think that was the important part, to look after the consumer again, so that there's nowhere in the regulations that it talks to this. So what we need to do, go back and apply the basic fundamentals. We're sitting with the customers' private property, and they want it back. So we're allowed to give it back to them because it's their private property. We're not entering into a new agreement. The next challenge we have is in terms of movement, and the regulations are quite specific about when you can move and when you can't move. So if you happen to be in the area and you're collecting stuff, there's no reason why you can't collect your goods. But you must not come to us to enter into a new agreement. That's not allowed. There's no credit agreements allowed to be entered into at the store at this point in time. That's our interpretation of the regulations. Other people may interpret differently, but we believe we can't do that. In terms of our money lending, so if you're looking for unsecured money lending, we have offices at home. The guys are now doing that electronically, because our interpretation of access, you can't do that at the store. So again, so unsecured money lending, the guys can do at home. So we have teams sitting at home with laptops, all the technology they're here, phoning the customers. Luckily, we have something called the Cashies card, which is a credit card, a credit card with cash converters on, and we can transfer money directly into the card. The customer doesn't even have to come to our store if he's an existing customer. So that's just advantages of the technology that we've had in the past. So the unsecured money lending part of our business is still going. We are retailing in probably 4 or 5 different departments currently, which is about 20% of our business. In terms of retail, we can still trade in, and we're desperately hoping we can get into cash advance in the near future. So I think pawnbroking is a great means for the average person to access cash, and we're hoping that a level 3 will allow us to do that. We have made commitment to DTR. We haven't had a positive or negative response to them yet, so we hope we can trade in cash advance in the very near future.
Excellent, thank you. Dennis says, yeah, that was going to be his same questions, and your previous answer also answered his question, and yeah, because he wanted to know how did you open up your buy shop. So thank you for answering that question. It's a lot clearer. So you're basically supplying old customers, existing customers, but you cannot supply or engage with new customers at this point in time, is what I'm getting through. And we're just going to go into some questions here quickly, or some things that people are saying. Nelson Carrera is saying, I'm a Cash Converters franchisee, and I want to thank Cash Converters South Africa for their hard work behind the scenes to assist us during these challenging times. Thank you for your guidance and your support. So that's a great comment. And and another comment has come through from Sean Goldberg. He's one of our regulars. Hello from Franchise Mastermind Group in the UK. Love how positive the South African franchisors are. Amazing what you are achieving against the odds. So thank you for that. And then Dirk Siliers is also saying, as franchisors, we need to work together with our large infrastructures to support and promote each other as members of FASA. So thank you for that comment, so those comments and input. And in just the last few things, working from home support and guidance with staff and salaries, how are you guys dealing with that aspect of the business during COVID-19?
Thank you. That's a great question. Before I get into it, I just wanted to comment maybe on Sean Goldsmith's comment. So one of the advantages that we have being an international brand is that we were able to pick up the phone and phone. So we phoned the UK, spoke to the UK franchisor and said, listen, what's going on? And they were a little bit ahead of us in terms of COVID-19, and explain to us what's your context. And hindsight is a wonderful thing. And there's very few instances you get this. So we phoned them and said, look, knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently? And we had a chat to guys in the UK. We spoke to Australia in terms of our franchisors in Australia. Interesting, the Australian strategy was very different to the UK strategy. But again, they were a couple of weeks ahead of us. And we spoke to the New Zealand team as well and had a chat to them to understand what their context was. So the advantages of being an international franchise is that you have these things. You can pick up the phone and phone. having a chat to the CEO of New Zealand recently, he was saying, how their context has changed, and they've just started now. The first round of starting to do a small amount of retrenchment. So it probably leads me into your questions. So working from home, looking after staff. So it's really, really difficult as a starting point to understand this context of your staff. So we've been lucky that we've managed to relocate our whole head office infrastructure to home, literally. It's got to do with a huge amount of laptops. Luckily, we have a whole lot of contacts with people who sell second-hand laptops. So we're able to get our hands on a whole lot of laptops. We're able to get our hands on a whole lot of 3G dongles. So those people who don't have internet at home, we've been able to give it to them. And then we've used some technology, some really fancy technology out there at the moment. Microsoft Teams is primarily the piece of software that we've been using, and it's just become a new normal. So I have face-to-face meetings with all of my team on a daily basis. You just press a button, it dials in, and you chat to them. When I vacated the office, I bought my whole office. I have 3 computer screens, I have a phone, I have a whole lot of different things. And one of the things I've noticed in this period of time is I haven't touched my phone. I literally haven't touched it because I've done everything via my laptop or everything via my cell phone, but my desktop hasn't been used. So supporting the team at home is really, really important. And we've got a huge training department that is focused on speaking to people. So one of the first things we did was focus our attention on saying, this is the new normal. How do you set yourself up from home? So we gave them some tips on doing how to set up a home workstation, how to manage your day. We were speaking off air before this on how you need to go to work and leave work. You can't just work all day. So I come into the garage, I close the door, and hopefully my kids don't pop in. They might do later. And at some point in time, I then walk out, I go have lunch with the children, and then I come back in and I go back to work. So how do you do that? How do you manage the process? You need to get up in the morning, you need to shave, you need to shower, you need to get changed for work. Yes, and I only have to change to work until I waist, so you can only see my waist. I've got a great cash converter shirt on at the moment, but I'm sitting in shorts and a pair of slops. And that's the new norm. I've seen guys that have like little railings next to them. They grab the shirt and put it on quickly, otherwise they're sitting with shorts and a t-shirt. This will change going into winter. So that's the new normal, and we've had to look after that. In terms of staff, this is a really, really difficult one because you've got so again, to go back to relationships, you've got to have relationships with your staff. Your business coming out of lockdown, coming out of COVID-19 needs those staff. But you now got a whole lot of elements. We've got certain departments of our business that can't operate at the moment. And you can only do a no work. So we started off with the fundamentals saying, let's try our best round one to try pay everybody because it's not their fault and we should have run a decent business and we should have some reserves in place. Secondly, we now start moving to the second round, where in our organization we looked at a across the board salary sacrifice and said to us, we don't know where we are, we don't know how this is going to happen, we don't know what's going to happen in the past, we need to start being prudent about what we're doing. So we made a group decision, said, well, why don't we all take a salary sacrifice moving going forward to make sure that we can stick around for a longer period of time. So we've been prudent. So any non-core developments, any non-core stuff that's not persistent or consistent with what we're trying to achieve right now, take it off the table, put stall on it. Let's work specifically in the COVID-19 context and make sure we come out the other side in a position to be able to provide support and guidance to our franchise network, and understanding that we need to then build from there back to profitable. So our focus at the moment is cash and not profit, which is a different reality. Generally, we focus on profit and not cash. This time it's the other way around. So retaining cash, making sure we can look after it. In terms of our staff, in the best case scenario, if you can pay them a full salary, I would strongly advise it, because they, in their context, where they are in their home, they have to put food on the table. They have to put food on the table within the community, and people are going to look at them and go, geez, that person there still hasn't been to work for a month, but you can still put food on the table. What's going on? And hopefully the word cash converters will come out and they can look, see that, understand that we're part of the community. As it gets tighter and tighter, that really becomes not viable. So you get salary sacrifices, going down to smaller teams, ultimately no work, no pay, but making sure if you're going into that process, you need to do the submissions to UIF. UIF has done a brilliant job of turning around those applications. But again, you had to be compliant in the first place. You had to be registered. You have to have paid your pay as you earn. You must have management accounts. So if you've done all those things and you put the applications through, you generally got that money through really quickly. I'm blown away how quickly we got the money through, be able to get that money through to our franchisees. So trying to keep that, and then being open and honest to your customers and your staff. At some point in time, there's business models that just can't afford it. You got to sit them down and say, well, this is where I am. These are my options. I think we all understand it. We all understand that there's some hard decisions to make. There will be casualties, and I think we need to understand that from a staff level, from a franchise, individual franchise businesses. I think in the greater industry, I think if you're a food franchisee at the moment, I feel desperately sorry for you because I don't know when your new normal comes out. So there are going to be casualties in COVID-19, and we need to be conscious of that and try our best. If you can still pay staff, you need to do your bit. It's about being community focused, South African focused, and looking after the industry where you can. And if you can't, there's no need to be hard away about it. It's a new reality we face, and you just need to stand up, man up, and say, well, this is where I'm at the moment. These are my options, and make the right long-term decisions at this point in time. It's not easy, but hard decisions have to be made.
That's such great. I'm really glad to hear that, because, you've seen businesses out there who have not taken such care or concern with regards to their staff, or even taken salary cuts or whatever, or they're just saying, well, sorry, we're retrenching you, and yet they have the resources to be able to tide the storm, so to speak. So that's really nice to hear that Cash Converters is taking that direction. And working from home is quite a bit of an adapting involved. I mean, I've been doing it for years, so it's a bit normal for me, and it's one, and it's good to know that you have that support from, say, a big umbrella where you can tap into and call and say, listen, I'm struggling with this, and it seems like Cash Converters has a really open door policy in this regard, and that's really refreshing. And I hope that these business, it's almost like COVID-19 has given us that time to say, listen, let's redo things. How do we redo things going forward? And hopefully that becomes part of the norm. Like working from home, it saves the environment. It also, I think, opens a lot more time for someone where you don't have to sit in traffic all day. And as long as you being a productive member of the team at the end of the day, I think it really is it's about how are you contributing to the company that you work for, or even for the businesses that you are a part of. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. So that's all we've got time for today. Anything you want to share in closing, Trevor, before we end?
I think just as a general comment, I think we're in a very difficult situation. It is a new normal for all of us, so we need to adapt to it, and we just got to do it for the right reasons. I think that's really it. You've got to think long term. You've got to understand that this too will end. So we will get out of it. We're not sure how long it is, and I'm sure the government will provide some guidance on telling us and giving us more time frames on doing this. We need to understand that there are industries out there that are completely really crippled at the moment. We need to bear with them and understand that they're in. So everyone has their part to play, and if you just play your little part in the bigger process, I think we'll help everyone get through this process. Understand that everyone is fighting for survival, so you need to be fair and reasonable in your approach, and understand that very often we're not going to agree on certain things, and that's just that's life. But and we're allowed to disagree, but as long as we try to get to the same goals of getting out COVID-19 all in one piece, I think we'll be fine. So you can agree to disagree at certain points in time, but remember we have the same goals. I just wish everyone luck out there. I hope this passes quickly. I hope we have a new normal very quickly. I have a nephew out who stays in Beijing, and I spoke to him recently, and he said to me, the only advice I can give you, he said, this is going to happen to you once, hopefully only once in your lifetime. So find the positives in it and find something that you can do that is positive. I'm a runner, and I can now run in the mornings on roads that have no cars on them whatsoever, which is absolutely fantastic. Yes, it has an indent on the economic activity, but it's really quite nice running routes that I've never run before because they'd normally just be full of cars. So I wish everyone the best of luck. Romy, thank you so much for your time. We do appreciate it. We think these sessions do help. So thank you to you and Father for your great work. And I wish everyone at home good luck.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. Thank you for your questions. Really appreciate them. This is how we're going to help each other and support each other by having these discussions and having these conversations. Learning, I've definitely learned quite a bit today from Trevor, for example, with regards to some of the things, especially interpreting the law and how to do things like that. So I agree with you. Thank you so much for having you and for joining us today, Trevor. Just to remind you that FASA is a non-profit organization that protects, lobbies, promotes and develops ethical franchising across all sectors of South Africa with specific focus on transformation. FASA offers memberships to both franchisors and franchisees who support and runs ethical businesses. If you want to know more about FASA, you can visit them at www.fasa.co.za. And just lastly, if you want to get hold of Cash Converters, I will be posting a link in the comment box in this conversation below where you can get hold of them and contact them. Thank you for joining us, everyone, and have a super week going forward.
Thank you. Bye-bye.